all is well with you from wherever part of the world you are watching us. You're right on time for In Focus. My name, as always, is Eugene Anangua. Every Sunday on the program, we get to sit here and have a conversation on various topical issues just to try and understand them and make sense out of them. Tonight on the program, we are focusing on the conversation on the 88-year-old judge who is called Theodore Meron. Of course, the question is, can this man, Theodore Meron, be stopped? Let's take a look at what we know about this judge. This is him, of course, various pictures of him talking of, the different stories about him as far as he's concerned. And of course, he is the mechanism for international criminal tribunals. He's actually the president of that particular tribunal. And this is that tribunal that actually took over from the International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, ICTR. He has definitely made controversial decisions, some unilaterally, that have been seen as an outright attack on the memory of the genocide against the Tutsis. And of course, some of the acquittals that he has actually approved, one of them was on appeal of several high-profile genocide suspects, including former ministers in the genocidal government, reducing sentences for some convicts and granting early release to several other convicts on flimsy ground. Definitely, we are going to be talking about this particular judge. Also, among the contested decisions that Judge Meron has actually been able to make is one of them was the reversal of the life sentence of Colonel Theonest Bagosora to 35 years and acquitting, again on appeal, several former cabinet ministers. Definitely a conversation that we'll be talking about right here. All you need to do is join us by tweeting or sending your thoughts on this man, Meron, and the question is, can he be stopped and how can he be stopped? Definitely we'll be reading some of those thoughts that will be coming through this particular hashtag InFocusRW. So just tweet and add the hashtag InFocusRW. We'll definitely be following that particular hashtag in the course of the program to be able to put you in touch with us on this particular conversation. Let me bring in our panelists on the program. Also with us is none other than Dr. Diogene Bideri, who is actually Principal Legal Advisor at the CNLG. Thank you for joining us on the program. Also with us is Meron, who is actually an expert on international relations. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And also making a return on the show is Tom Dahiro, who's a genocide researcher. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, looking at this man, Meron, of course, a lot has been said about him. What we know right now, which is actually making rounds, is the fact that Hassan Ngeze, who was the editor of a newspaper, Kangura, that actually routinely dehumanized and incited violence against the Tutsis, may be released by this man over his application for early release. And the question that we have here is that the complaints that have been made by various lawyers and many others, including locals here in Rwanda, those on social media, they have that feeling that Judge Meron will actually accept this request by Hassan. And I want to understand from you, Bideri, why is it that we have this feeling that he may actually accept this even before that decision has come?
I think before the Hassan Ngeze made his request, other cases were handled by Judge Meron in a way of accepting the request, and the acquittal or the commutation of sentence or RREs were granted to all prisoners. And I think also in the case of Ngeze or Dominique Nhakwiriayo and the Aris Simba, he acted as he has always acted.
Right. So this is the feeling.
Even if they are, today the situation is a little bit different because he's seeking, because he's at the end of his mandate. So seeking another mandate, then he could be a little bit different or act differently as he has always acted.
Been acting.
Yes.
Right. We will dig a bit deeper into his mandate and why, Association of Rwandan Survivors of the Genocide Against the Tutsis do not want him to be given another chance at this body. But Emery, aren't we preempting, aren't we worrying over something that hasn't happened yet? I just want to read your thoughts on why we have this fear, sort of, that Judge Meron would say yes to the request of Hassan Ngeze and his
Thank you, Eugene. Probably at some point, I think I'll try and allude to what my good colleague and good friend, Dr. Videri, has just said, and which, well, when put into context, makes a lot of sense. Mm-hmm. But my take actually would start from the standpoint that, first of all, before I even say or think that maybe I have a concern, mm-hmm. the best way to approach a situation is actually probably gathering intel on this particular person. Mm-hmm. So who is this so-called Judge Theodore Meron? Mm. So well, let's accept some facts, whether we like it or not, because that's the way things are. He's an octogenarian, as you well put it earlier in the show. Mm-hmm. And being 88 years old, well astutely decorated as far as academically standpoints are concerned, well versed with legal frameworks and legal mechanisms, to the extent that I don't want to preempt the aspect that actually he has got into a comfort zone where he thinks he becomes the next king as far as legal implications are concerned. But coming back to the standpoint of where my country is, and probably even the former Yugoslavia scenarios, I would want to believe that actually there is concern. There is concern because quickly taking you back, and maybe these are things we can dig later. Mm-hmm. If you're looking at two gentlemen in the names of Ferdinand Ahimana and some so-called Rukundo priest, the Catholic priests. Interestingly enough, these are people by 2013, I think, they were handed over the arrest and everything. But at the end of the day, my concern would be, why are they going to be acquitted?
Right.
And they are in Mali, in a place called Kolikuro prison. When you look at that, because sometimes, international law is international law, but sometimes it becomes amorphous and porous. So, but it doesn't mean that as a sovereign state as Rwanda, we don't have our position.
Right.
Yes. So the question then would be, because everything is being looked under the premises and the pretext or the frameworks of the MICT, Mechanism of International Criminal Tribunals. So I wouldn't presume that actually on maybe my seniors here and good friends would also come in and maybe give in some light. But I wouldn't presume that they would look at it from a national law, which is the Mali customary law. Maybe they gave in the place. The place for them to be. But again, I would be expecting that particular international law could be looking at what exactly are the precepts and the legal frameworks to be followed,
right,
before we rush into
making conclusions. Tom, lawyers, many others are actually expecting that Hassan Ngeze, his early release request will be actually granted by Judge Meron. Aren't we jumping or crossing the bridge before we even get to it? Are we preempting? Why do we have this fear that this judge will actually accept this request by Hassan Ngeze?
Well, my opinion has been that Ngeze will be released. For me, Ngeze Hassan was a mere tool. He's a criminal. But the criminal mind was driven by the Nahimanas. For people who know Hassan Ngeze, was not an ideologue of genocide. The ideologues of the genocide are the Nahimanas. From the information, verifiable information you have, most of the articles that were published in that magazine called Kangura were written and even edited to the last point of publication by other people who were not him. If you can release Ngeze Hassan, if you can release Nahimana, if you can reduce the sentence, to begin with, the sentence of Nahimana was reduced from life to 35 years. And so was Bagosora. So here you are talking about the Rwanda's Goebbels and Rwanda's Himmler. If I would just grasp the context of the Nazis.
Right.
Hassan Ngeze is not even the caliber of Julius Streicher. Julius Streicher was educated, but of course was full of hate. He was a prolific writer, just like his boss Hitler. But if you look at Article 151 of the rule number 151 of the MICT, which talks, among other things, conditional about the releases, early releases of prisoners. The first thing they talk about is to consider the gravity of the crime of that person. This has never been a condition. In early 2016, the prosecutor for MICT, by then Bakar Jalo, wrote to Meron, asking him to stipulate the conditions for early releases. So far the problem has been, for me, I know the releases will be there, but the prosecutor and some judges were asking him to set conditions.
Right.
So you are just releasing thugs who are terrible criminals
Without any
condition.
guidelines.
Yes. Without any condition. No, the issue is condition. There has to be condition. You don't just release. What if Nahiman today, because he's not quite old, he's not a senior or advanced octogenarian like Meron? Do you mean this guy? Because if you look at what I've just got several correspondences between the judges and the prosecutor of MICT. What if Nahimana is released and is employed as an academic? So here you are releasing people who have shown no remorse, who have even been publishing while in prison. The accusations that were set before the ICTR were the crimes that were committed between January and December 1994. But similar crimes of Nahiman and Ngeze, they kept on committing these crimes even after 1994.
Right.
So here you're talking about seasonal, well, not seasonal, but serial genocidaires who are remorseless and whom are considered as just as good boys all of a sudden. Because one of the things which is supposed to be considered by the president of the MICT is a good conduct of a prisoner.
And they have all not shown that.
And they all have not shown anything like that.
Right. Let me come back to Dr. Bideri, because the survivors of the genocide against the Tutsis have actually urged the United Nations to not renew the contract of this judge, Theodore Meron, when it comes to an end. And, you know, what rings to mind is actually the process, because we've seen even hashtags have been created, Stop Meron. And I want to hear from your legal point of view, what, apart from these statements that we see on the media and the hashtags we see on social media, what are the legal processes that have been put in place that would actually stop Meron?
It's very difficult to say there a legal process. I think the way the statute, the rules of procedure and evidence are set by UN Security Council really give too much power to the president of the mechanism, to Judge Meron. All decisions regarding to our release or commutation of sentence or acquittal,
they're all in his hands.
Mainly is at his personal appreciation. So his powers and nothing. But I think the only way to stop him is really to put on table that decisions taken by Meron are political or not legally motivated. I explain because, for example, when you took the rules of procedures and evidence, has to take in account not only the person, the prisoner, but also victims. That is to respect the principle of interest of justice. Interest of justice means that the decisions are taken and the principle of fairness and equity are respected. That means it is not only the person, the Nahiman or Ngeze, to be considered, but also victims. So both. But until now, the government of Rwanda is doing now is to show that this person has, until now, taken decisions not controversial. They are wrong decisions because really not based on law. I can give an example. Since he took the lead as president of the court, is not considering, for them, the gravity of the offense. That Tom was trying to show that those are the mastermind of the genocide. So the gravity of a crime, for him, is not nonsense. But in the statute and the rules, he has to consider the gravity of the crime and the role played by the person. But he didn't take into account this and the gravity of the crime in appreciation of the LGBT of the person to be released, for example. For him, it's not only, it is only what he thinks, what he wants. And before him, because other judge could consider, for them, the gravity of the crime and say that the person cannot be released because of this gravity of the crime, then the condition was not the 2/3, but the 1/3. But when he came, he changed everything. For him, 2/3 is
it's
enough.
a good condition enough to release someone.
And previously, the other judges, in the case of Bagaragaza, for example, the judge, the president of the court, Rete Kama, said no, the person is the mastermind, the profile mastermind of genocide. He has to serve again thirds. But when you see the cases where Meron intervened, all cases are only for 2/3. That is why, for example, for this condition of the gravity and the role played by the person, normally should not allow the RREs to some individuals.
Right.
Mainly those who are sentenced to life imprisonment.
Right. And when we look at this, it is not the first time, as we've said, and also as Tom has given us a proper background of the cases, 2016, we've also had the question of Colonel Theones Bagosora. It seems that he keeps on doing this, and the question still comes, how then can he be stopped, even in the case of Ngeze and any other cases that would come in the near future? What sort of mechanisms do you think Rwanda should be applying that would, technically and easily, even legally, stop Judge Meron?
Good. Yeah, so maybe before I go into the mechanisms that maybe the state of Rwanda should actually try to employ, let me first of all actually appreciate that actually Tom and Dr. Bidiri were able to articulate exactly as far as the chronological history and the activities of Judge Meron, what's been happening. But again, for you to go into those mechanisms, my take would be, I would first of all actually try to understand why Meron does what he does. So you go back and again, intel is very important. So you're looking at, this is someone who was born in Poland way back 1930, has got experience, got Israeli nationality, eventually became an American, has got on his belt a couple of good legal publications, has been working with the ICTY, that is International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia, did I think for 2 terms, which is almost like 10 years, and was the president, was actually the judge of appeals chamber for ICTI, International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda. So it tells you this is someone who is well versed with the law, someone who well versed with what's actually happening on the ground.
Yes.
Exactly. So now, when it comes to be like that, then you do understand that actually ICTY and ICTR are defunct. And on the process of being defunct, because that's what the law required from the premises of the United Nations Security Council, then comes in MICT, or rather International Residual Committee for the Criminal Tribunals issues. So the problem then would be under Resolution 1966 of 2010 is when you have your MICT on the ground. Now, here comes someone you would expect that actually by all means necessary, you would be in a position to employ what the law requires. Now, this is international law we are talking about, and under the concept of, personally, and that's where I want to go and zero in, under the concept of jus cogens, or maybe I would also call it peremptory norm, whereby you're looking at the definition of genocide, and actually you come back and say, what are the real fundamental principles of war and atrocities against humanity? So how do you circumnavigate that? So I think on a couple of fronts, the state of Rwanda has tried, and I think if well informed, I think it was during the tenure of the late Mucho, who actually tried to even portend, or even when I go back to CSCNLG, and probably Dr. Videri can allude on this, whereby they have made several calls and said, we don't think Meron is doing the right thing, and actually we would request for his resignation. Again, that calls for certain legal measures.
Right.
But what is important, and that the state of Rwanda actually, and I think he did allude to it very well, is actually to try and understand the person, because one, some mechanisms are not being followed. Rules of engagement, as far as law is concerned, it's being placed, so which poses the questions: who is he serving? Whose interests? But the sad reality is that these things are happening. The releases are taking place. Of course, they are happening. And as Tom, they put it very well. Yes. Some of them you don't even need to think twice. They are going to be released. When you look at someone like Hassan Jeze, this is not, to me, is even beyond being a perpetrator. Is someone, because when you're looking at atrocities, as far as crimes are concerned, within the context of genocide, there are 2 things which are coming. There will be the aspect of intent and motive. But actually what comes before is intent. So this is someone who went back, and as Tom put it very well, was head of the Kangura magazine. That's 1. 2, there's the aspect of hate speech. So when you tell me that you're an octogenarian, very well versed and astutely academically, up there, and you don't understand that actually hate speech is a component, is a very strong component that can actually instigate trigger anything to go towards genocide. I don't understand what business you have in MICT. Right. Which becomes actually, Eugene, very tragic. But as Dr. Bideri put it, the guy is also going to go for the next mandate. And he's seeking that.
And Tom, you said it as we started the show that, in your opinion, you outrightly know that Ngeze will be released.
Of course, the next will be Bagosora.
And can we just sit back and keep saying we know they'll be released? What then can Rwanda do?
It's not just Ngeze.
Yes. So what do we do then as Rwanda? How do we stop these releases?
It's just next on the list. Yeah. Because even the sentence he got of 35 years. Soon he'll be, I think, almost 2/3 is almost close to. it's no longer an issue of if. It's a certainty that this piece, if he remains, they will be released. So you asked me why. You see, this concern of early releases was. I'm sorry, I have to tell what was written in the Muvunyi case in 2012. And this is a note which was taken by the court. The tribunal has no means to supervise convicted persons on parole or to react if conditions for early release are being violated, and thus early release by the tribunal is in fact an unconditional reduction or commutation of sentence. And then when Jaro, in his note, there is a memorandum of the 3rd February 2016. On the 3rd paragraph, he writes, while the availability of a sentence review framework reflects international standards, the current practice of irrevocably reducing prisoners' sentences is inadequate, in addition to provoking outrage among victims and affected communities, undermining public confidence in the administration of justice. And this is what Bidero was saying. Early releases by way of an unconditional reduction of sentence departs from domestic and international practice. You see?
So if you break that down,
so
where do we move?
Here, one of the outrage was an early release, his early release of Stanislav Galvich, the one who, those who killed the Muslims. He said, how do you release these people without considering the plight of the victims and their feelings? You just look at Bagosora as someone who held a rosary in prison, and he's praying, but he never said anything to admit that what he committed was a crime. In 2009, most of these perpetrators who are being released, they wrote a letter to the tribunal administration claiming to be prisoners of political prisoners.
Yes.
So you have a bunch of these criminals who are making an appeal to Meron, who behaves like a moron, doing outrageous things. It's not a problem of Rwanda. These early releases should be a problem of humanity. Everybody who cares about justice, as Bidel said, should be concerned. It's not a problem of Rwanda. It's a problem of international justice, as was shown by Jalo. You can't just ignore everyone. There is a Danish judge who once said Meron was working for United States and Israel, assuming they are masters. They are his masters whom he's serving. Then he's either serving these masters who are heartless, and he's not serving justice, and therefore he's supposed to be disqualified.
He's supposed to be disqualified, yet he hasn't been disqualified, Dr. Bideri.
He needs an early retirement.
So how do we practically give him that early retirement?
Long overdue.
How does that happen? Let's share with us. I mean, have we given up? Because he seems to be raising the red flag, saying that Ngeze is going to be released. Next there'll be another one, and another one.
Next will be Bagosora.
Next will be Bagosora. He's raising these flags, and from CNLG's perspective, what are we doing so far, or where have we reached with stopping this from happening, or have we already given up? That let him just do it because we are used to him. He's going to do that. He said he's a moron. He behaves like a moron. He's just going to continue doing that. Have we given up?
No, I think we can't give up because the Judge Meron is really we have to emphasize this. He's 8
years old.
It's enough. In 2 years he'll be 19. So how can this person sit and take a decision? That is one thing. We have to see really if he's capable to do something to to conduct a legal, legally to be in a good way to take a decision. So that is one thing. When you look the the UN Security Council, it's the UN Security Council to appoint him. So I think today the UN Security Council is now think that there are problems with the Judge Meron.
Right.
And for the first time, I think now he's requested to explain, to give explanation of his previous decisions for our
Early releases.
Yes.
So if it is for the first time that the international community now is facing Meron, and Meron has to respond. And this, for me, will oblige the members of the UN Security Council to take a decision in this case. And he will not, in my point of view, as he's seeing that he is not too many chances to get another mandate. I was trying to say, yes, I have some business to handle, give me some month, not entire mandate, but give me just 1, 2 or mandate to finish this, my business. I think this also should not be granted to him. So what he has to do is to go, to leave the court, one, because he's old enough, and second, because his way to handle matters is not really acceptable by international community. Rwanda, being member of the UN, so has a voice. Even Rwanda is not member of the UN Security Council, but we have the obligation to protect the Rwanda, the government or the Republic of Rwanda as nation has to protect the population, but also to protect legally the population. Here I want to say legally to protect not only perpetrators, because perpetrators also have their rights to serve their sentence and to be reintegrated after they serving their sentence, but also to protect the interests of victims. That is an obligation for a state. And what Rwanda is doing now, I think it is to put the question at the top.
So
the UN Security Council to sit and decide.
So that pressure now can come from there. Emery, from an international relations point of view, he says for the first time in so many years, the UN Security Council now is questioning his decisions. Some people have been also wondering and saying that probably the problem is not just Meron, Judge Meron. Probably the problem could be in the system itself, a judicial system that handles these international jurisdictions. And why would it take that long after all those acquittals, all those releases, early releases, and even the ones that he says could be happening very soon? Why would it have taken all that time for the members of the UN Security Council to start saying, you know what, can we start questioning these releases? Can we start questioning this guy? Can he start being accountable? Why all this long?
Thanks. Let's first of all appreciate, and in a very unfortunate manner, that actually how the structure of the world system is goes by our good friend George Orwell's book, when he tells you that actually all animals are equal, but there are some animals that are more equal than others. And that's the way the international system is. So having put it that way, it does tell you that there are some things that are prioritized. So in so calling the states animals, those other big animals prioritize what is important and probably what is not important. In 1994, let's go back, unfortunately, Rwanda was not important at the international arena. Okay, but this year we are 24 years, and some things have happened. Dr. Bidiri has brought it very well, and actually has showed you that it's not only about the question of genocide perpetrators. It cuts across, and it becomes a process because you also need to bring in the other component, which is the survivors. And Rwanda is a state, is a sovereign state, which actually tries to to perpetuate and do its international legal obligations.
Right.
Now, going back to actually what also Tom Ndahiro brought in very well by calling the Danish judge, actually, who is Judge Hahoff. And actually what Hahoff does, and I think that's what Tom Ndahiro was trying to bring out, was that he got this particular report, which actually was circulating within the court. And actually, he did realize that actually something was wrong with Meron. And this is where probably I also do compliment Dr. Videri. Because now, question would be, who is Judge Meron serving? Is it the international legal system? Or is it some big fish who believe that they sit above the rest of the equal actors? Mm-hmm. And by so doing, actually, Hahoff actually stipulated it very well, and actually showed how Judge Meron was actually trying to stifle other judges in trying to quicken the processes of actually trying to make the quick releases for those particular genociders. That's one. And unfortunately, by 2013, he was never given. He had actually requested for that is Judge Hauf had actually requested for the next term, and he was disqualified. So that's one. So when you go to that, it does tell you that actually at the international system, it's not just all about these legal frameworks. It's actually the structure and the framework of how the legal system is. And you're not going to go away. Start by, let's just, a case in point. United Nations Security Council is made up of 15 members, 10 non-permanent members, 5 permanent members. Go back in 1994, the one of the 5 permanent members, who is a good friend of Rwanda, I was supposed to say that, and hopefully we can normalize our diplomatic relations, is France. And I believe that our good government is doing all it can as far as normalization of relations is concerned, whether His Excellency the President, whether Her Excellency the Minister of Foreign Affairs. But the question would be, you need to be, and I think that's what our government has been trying to try to foster. You don't just sit and purport, no, but the rationale behind it, actually, just to make it easy even for the layman's man to understand, is that actually we as states, we are supposedly so meant to be equal, but actually if you want us to do business, we will do business. Rwanda, as far as the genocide of 1994 against the Tutsis, has been 24 years old. Now, here we are in 2018. Here comes the case of Meron. Tom Ndahiro is telling you more than 2, 3, 4 Bagosora and the rest will be out no sooner than later. So the question is then, which way forward?
Yes.
So when it comes to that, I think Rwanda as a state has done so much it can through CNLGs, through its institutions and all that. But again, it does go back to what Tom said. It goes beyond that. It's all a question of humanity. And do these legal parameters look at it from a standpoint or from a mirror of humanity? That's the question. Then the next fundamental question would be, who is Meron serving? Okay.
So how can Rwanda then leverage this friendship? We have friends of Rwanda who truly are so. Because Tom said that this is not just a problem of Rwanda alone, because other states, this is a humanity issue. People who care about humanity should stand up, should be concerned. So where or how can Rwanda leverage that friendship, the international community, the friends of Rwanda? Is there a way they can play a role?
Yeah, of course.
In piling pressure?
Of course we can pile pressure. I mean, we are a sovereign state with mechanisms, with structures, with institutions. But also, let's not close one eye and just be fools. We know that some things cannot come on a platform whereby we feel that we need to exercise emotional intelligence. But we need to go beyond and use cognitive intelligence. In as much as we know some things are going wrong, the disaster with the international system is that sometimes you need to follow certain rules. And some certain players will call the shots. But as Rwanda, what you're going to do is that we will follow our legal and international obligations. We've got institutions which are very vocal, Dr. Bideri being one of the one of the proponent, and within his institution, which is CNLG, we've got other government institutions as far as ministries are concerned, and all that. Now, you can leverage that through the international systems. You can lobby. You can do all that, and we could even decide, use. I don't want to call it civil disobedience, but actually, what you do is that you could even go to streets and actually make sure that you are denouncing this particular
peaceful protest.
Yeah, peaceful protest, and you denounce some of these things. You come out and use all methods, but at the end of the day, let's not lie to ourselves. It does remain that what are the interests Meron is serving, because Dr. Bideri said it very well. This could be the last kicks of a dying horse. He's an octogenarian who is 88. 2 years time.
Says I have nothing to lose.
He will. I mean, I've got nothing to lose,
Right.
and he could actually do what Tom Ndairo was saying, and probably fasten those processes. What happens if you fasten those processes? Bagosora is out, as Tom said.
That is a question I want to throw to Tom.
Yeah.
What happens if Bagosora is released?
Before Bagosora is released,
Yes.
you see, we must even address a damage already done. We shouldn't just let him go, knowing that he released very, very criminal guys who planned the genocide and who even facilitated the mobilization of ordinary folks to participate in the heinous crime.
So how do we practically make him
The
accountable?
first thing is find a way of shouting, but even shaming these guys. I've ever believed this is important. Most of these debates we're holding, this is an echo chamber. We should get out of the echo chamber. We should tell others that this is a problem against humanity and the spirit of the Genocide Convention. If you read the preamble of the Genocide Convention, it talks about two important things: punishment and prevention.
Yes.
Punishment is part of the prevention, but it also talks about the second thing, which is very important: international cooperation. Where is this international cooperation? We are seeing a person who is a promoter of impunity. I can't just look at Meron as at his age, advanced octogenarian, as someone with the symptoms of very serious senility. It's not a question of senility. You are talking about senility, which promotes impunity. It's not his problem. It's the problem we are seeing is not Meron's. It's the international community, and especially the United Nations, allows the ignoring of the victims and ignoring the future of most survivors and their feelings. You ignore them. They know they were ignored in 1994.
And you ignore him even now.
Now it is happening again, that someone doesn't care about these perpetrators. He's actually looking at them as good boys. All of a sudden, after 2/3, he wants to release, he's releasing them without condition. You just go and integrate with others. So one thing which we can do is, one, to change the rules, whereby an individual, a Meron or senile, cannot just release criminals as he wishes.
Right. So how do those rules get changed? I mean,
usually the MICT
Yes.
can be mandated. Some judges, as the prosecutor, even the one who came after Jaro, he wrote to Meron asking him, please, we need to change these rules so that we can grant releases, but with the conditions.
Yes. And it is actually one of the recommendations that Her Excellency Valentine, who is actually at the UN at the UN, she actually gave this as part of the suggestions as to how the MICT should be able to put in place clear rules of procedure for early releases and apply them transparently instead of leaving the decision to the personal discretion of the current or even future president. But the question here is, as he said, moving out of this, debates
Getting out of the echo chamber.
out of this echo chamber. How practical do you think this can be done? Who will take the initiative of actually going to start changing those rules? Do you see them happening? Do you see it even taking place anytime soon?
The rules of procedure and evidence changed since 2010. For the mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
So every year the rules change.
Mm-hmm.
But for the mechanism, for the first time, for example, if I take an example and a very, very key element of this issue, the article or rule 125 in the ICTR rules provide that to notify Rwanda before the early release, to notify. But the new rules in the article 150, they are notifying Rwanda was put out. And that was the way for Meron to do things without alerting Rwanda or other nations concerned by this. So, and when you request for them, for Meron to explain why Rwanda was not notified and why those rules were changed, today he can say, yes, it is not me. I received the rules from the UN Security Council, but it is not true. He was behind this, not to notify Rwanda, but to do his business, ignoring Rwanda.
So how do we move forward from these suggestions that have been made for the notification issue, these questions that you're raising? So how do we bring back Rwanda or any other states to be notified first before these releases, these early releases, or these decisions on early release are taken or done?
I think since Rwanda is concerned by this, because we have Rwandans who are convicted for genocide and they're serving their sentence, Rwanda should also, so to notify Rwanda, has to appear in the rules. One thing. And also the nations, the states, where those persons are serving their sentence, Mali and Benin, have also to be notified and to be part of the process. Because really, when you say...
but that one is in Rule 151. The states will be where they are, but they removed Rwanda.
Yes, but what I mean is it can be here, but since Mali is not aware of the
yeah, of course.
Then it presents.
Yes, because the states have to play a very key role in our release. But let me say something about Meron. You know, Meron is equivalent with his thinking. Meron say that he's not, he doesn't agree with the principle of common responsibility. So for the individual criminal responsibility, you have to see if it's direct or indirect responsibility.
Right.
He said that, no, for him, no. This principle for him
doesn't apply.
Yes, doesn't apply. So that means that all the masterminds of genocide now are released because for him, I think, he thinks that they are not, the role they played is not important. And that is one. And secondly, when we think about Meron and we see his background, is someone who is in good position to understand well how those persons have to serve their sentence.
So you feel that this is a deliberate move by Meron to
Yes,
just
I think
let these people go?
Yeah, because it is what my colleague was trying to say. When you take the decisions at international level, you see what happened in 1945 with the Nuremberg tribunals. All masterminds were convicted to death penalty. And the sentence was executed.
Immediately, almost.
Immediately. But not all SS or members of Gestapo were sentenced to death penalty. So the members of the government, of the army and so on, those have to serve their sentence, regardless of something like this, but as it was in the Nuremberg cases. But why Rwanda today, why Bagosora should go out? In the case of Hitler, of Himmler, or other Nazi,
The top cream.
the top criminals. So they were sentenced and they killed. Why Bagosora and Ngeze and the others?
Should be released.
Yes, should be. No.
I want to read the tweets as you tell me. Emery, I think you can also jump in on this. Tom has said that we should leave. We should get out of the. You said
The
engine chamber, echo chamber.
Yeah.
The echo chamber.
Yeah.
Let's get off. I think that also means the hashtags. We move away from the hashtags as well.
Yeah, they stop Meron. I
And
think.
stop Meron practically, physically, and everything in every other way. But I want to hear from you. What do we do if all this falls on deaf ears? There've been the proposals on the recommendations on the inclusion of the countries concerned before these decisions are made. What if these recommendations fall on deaf ears? What do we do? As I go through the tweets very quickly, just talk to us. You can go ahead and tell us. What do we do?
So actually, as you're doing that, there's something actually my good friend Tom actually brought to me, and actually he just shared it to me. I was just reading it, and actually it's very interesting in terms of like one. If it's Ngeze, let's say for example Ngeze and Bagosora actually get released, one aspect that actually should come to mind is that actually don't think that they'll just leave like that and come and integrate instantly, probably, if I got you well, Tom.
Yeah.
But actually, one thing that is going to be part of it is actually these guys are going to be protected. They are going to be protected, and they will be in an issue because you actually, if I got it right, is that you're protecting the prisoners who have been acquitted. But me thinking that way also gives me hope somewhere, because that actually these things are not right and something can be done, because I think that's where you're trying to.
Yes, what can be done? Yes.
You're trying to push me.
Yes.
If you go to Article 6, paragraph 2, actually does tell you that actually, in as much as this mechanism it's a residual process, because it does tell us that the crimes against humanity, especially within the context of genocide, are there. And 10, 20 years now, we do see that some perpetrators of the Holocaust, we still do get some. And actually some certain actions are taken. So even for Rwanda, the case is going to be the same. So this is going to be an open ground. But actually going back would be, MICT stipulates well from the statute, actually that it is something that we can continue checking over and over, but we can go back and review what MICT, whether MICT is relevant or not. And that's where the state of Rwanda comes in, I think, and I think Dr. Bideri was trying
And
to...
even if we review that and find that it is not relevant or something, how do we turn back the arm of the clock and bring back these people who have already been released, as it says, within the next few...
For sure, I can promise you this without reasonable doubt. The state of Rwanda will use all its resources, okay, within the institutions and mechanisms to make sure that it can make its voice heard at the international system. Right. That's one thing. Rwanda is a state, but as he said earlier, Dr. Bideri, what is the role of these other states? I mean, how do they perceive it? Who is instigating who? For what particular interest? So it's a cobweb. It's a cobweb of issues that just don't get done by just a flip of the finger.
Right. Thank you. So as we keep reading those final thoughts, I want to read your thoughts as well on how can Meron be stopped? Can he be stopped, and how? This is definitely the question that we're asking ourselves. You share your thoughts with us, and we'll definitely be able to go through some of those tweets very quickly. Let me just read this one from Jay Mugabu. Says, unnecessary as it may seem to mention names, Judge Meron is not alone. This is a concerted effort in negating the genocide against the Tutsis and an attempt to save their image while justifying failure of the international community. That one there is well noted. I have one from Rudakemwa Nikki. Nikki says that Meron's actions should be investigated since they derail the efforts that have been made in serving justice to the victims, and also the judge should be replaced from his duties since he has failed to deliver according to the mandate and purpose of the mechanism. Thank you so much, Rudakemwa, for that. I have another one from Kim Kamasa here, and it says that denial is the 8th and final stage of any genocide, which is what Meron is doing. This hasty release of genocide convicts goes beyond Meron. It's a rot in the whole chain of international justice system. We have to stand up and fight these unlawful acts. Can we do this on our own as Rwanda? Can we make it as CNLG? Is this a fight we can win alone? And how do we pull in the others? Bideri.
Yes, I think really the initiative has to come from us,
Rwanda.
from
Yes.
Rwanda,
Yes.
but, and see to because it's a war, as Kim Kamasa said, it's denial, because this is denying justice. You say that genocide was committed, but now you are saying that nobody, so no responsibility. So that is a contradictory speech.
Right.
You cannot affirm that there was genocide, but Bagosora and his colleagues are innocent. Why can genocide happen if there's no one to commit
So that
it?
is denial.
Denying.
Right.
So
It's
the war against denial is a war which has to involve really Rwandans, but also friends of Rwanda.
Right.
And a person of goodwill, because really we have to together all our partners, our force to fight against, and to bring the war not only in local, but
We take
at
it
the
outside,
top, yes,
from the echo
outside.
chambers.
Yes.
Thank you so
we need,
much.
We need to get our war
out of these 4 rooms.
Yes.
And take it outside. Thank you so much. I'll take that as the parting shot on behalf of the rest, because I'm told time is up. We need to wrap up so that the news in English can actually come in. Definitely a great conversation that we've had right here. It should not stop in these 4 walls. The talk. Whatever we can do to be able to stop this, definitely it's something that needs to be done as soon as possible. As always, my name is Eugene Anangwe. Thank you for watching and thank you for being with us. The hashtag, as always, is InFocusRW. Let's keep talking. See you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you.
Renowned for its tremendous ability to fulfill your dreams,